I'm Drishti, currently pursuing my software engineering. So, for my Set 102 custom project, I built this recipe manager and meal planner in C++. Basically, it's a program where you can store recipes, plan your meals for the week, and it automatically makes a shopping list for you. I used SplashKit to make the GUI and I'll show you how I used all the concepts that we learned, like structs, arrays, pointers, loops, and functions. Let me show you how it works. Okay, so when you first run the program, you get this main menu with four buttons. Pretty simple. You can view recipes, plan your weekly meals, see your shopping list, or quit. Let me click view recipes first. So I already loaded three recipes to start with: spaghetti, bolognese, chicken stir fry, and pancakes. When I click on one like this spaghetti, it shows me everything about it, how long it takes to cook, how many people it feeds, how hard it is to make, and all the ingredients you need with the amounts. Now let me show you the meal planning part. Here is all 7 days of the week. I can assign recipes to different days by clicking assign. Watch, I'll put spaghetti on Monday, chicken stir fry on Wednesday, and pancakes on Saturday. And here is the cool part, the shopping list. It goes through all my planned meals and figures out what I need to buy. And if the same ingredient appears in multiple recipes like garlic, it adds up the amount automatically. Pretty handy, right? Alright, now let me explain how I actually built this. The whole program is based on the structs I created. The first one is called ingredient. It's really simple. It just stores the name of the ingredient like flour, the quantity you need like 2.5 and the unit like cups or grams. So everything about one ingredient is stored together in this struct. Mm, The second struct is recipe, and this one is bigger. It has the recipe name, cooking time, servings, and difficulty level. But here is the important part. Inside this struct, I have an array that can hold up to 20 ingredients. Each of those ingredients is actually the ingredient struct I just mentioned. So it's like a struct inside a struct. I also keep track of how many ingredients each recipe actually uses with an ingredient underscore count variable. The third struct is meal plan, and this is where I used pointers. Instead of copying entire recipes for each day, I just use pointers that point to recipes that already exist in the recipe list. So I have seven pointers, one for Monday, one for Tuesday, and so on. If a day doesn't have a meal plan, the pointer is just null. This saves memory and is more efficient. So I'm using global variables to keep track of everything. I have an array called recipe list that can store up to 50 recipes, and recipe count tells me how many recipes are actually in there. Then I have my weekly plan variable for the meal plan. I also use current screen to remember which screen we are on. Like 0 means main menu, 1 means recipe list, 2 means meal planning, 3 means shopping list. And I have selected a recipe and selected day to remember what the user clicked on. In my main function, I set all those meal plan pointers to null at the start, which is important because later I check if they are null to see if a day has a meal or not. Then I call this function to add the simplest recipe so the program isn't empty when it starts. Okay, so I broke my program into a bunch of different functions to keep things organized. First, I have add sample recipes function, which is just a procedure that creates those three starter recipes. It fills in all the details, name, cooking times, ingredients, and everything. This shows I know how to work with arrays and structs. Then I made these helper functions for the buttons. These draw button, which takes the text, position, size, and color and just draws a button on screen and is button clicked checks if the mouse is inside a button when you click. It returns true or false, so it's a boolean function. Mm, Each screen has its own function too, like draw main menu handles the main menu screen. It draws all the buttons and check if you clicked any of them. If you click view recipes, it changes current screen to 1. Same idea for draw recipe list, draw meal plan. One second. Same for draw recipe list, draw meal plan, screen, draw shopping list, s- screen. This is the draw meal plan screen function, and this is the generate shopping list. The most complicated function is this. I'll explain that one in detail in a minute because it uses nested loops. I use loops and if statements all over the place in this program. In the main menu, I have bunch of if statements that check if button you clicked. In the main menu, yeah, it checks that which button you click. Like if you click the first button, it sets current screen to 1. If you click the second, it's 2, and so on. In the recipe list screen, I use a for loop to go through all the recipes and draw them on screen. The loop goes from 0 to recipe count. Then there is another loop inside that displays all the ingredients when you select a recipe. For meal planning screen, I use a loop to go through all 7 days. For each day, I check if the pointer is null or not. If it's not, I show the recipe name. If it is null, I show no meal plan. This is where understanding pointers really matters. So, the shopping list function, yeah, alright. This is the most complex part of my program. The generate shopping list function. Let me break it down step by step. This function uses something called pass by reference. That means I am passing in the shopping list array and the count variable with so when I change them in this function, they actually change in the main program too. So the function starts by setting Let's count to zero starting fresh. Then I have this outer loop that goes through each day of a week from 0 to 6. For each day, I first check does this day have a recipe? I do that if by checking if the pointer is null. If it's null, I skip that day. If it's not null, then I know there is a recipe and I save the pointers in a variable called current recipe. Now here is where the nested loop comes in. For each recipe that exists, I loop through all its ingredients. Let's say we are cooking at garlic from Monday. I need to check is garlic already in my shopping list. So I do another loop that searches through everything currently in the shopping list. I compare the names and units. If I find garlic that's already there, I set a flag called found to true and remember where it is. This keeps going for every ingredient and every recipe for every day that has a meal planned. That's why it's called nested loops, and there is a loop inside a loop. Yeah. So just to recap everything I demonstrated in this project, I used structs to create custom data types, three of them actually, and one has a struct inside it. I worked with arrays, both regular arrays and arrays of structs. I used pointers to avoid copying data and make my meal plan work efficiently. I wrote functions and procedures to organize my code into logical pieces. I used loops for loops including nested loops in the shopping list function. I used if else statement for decision making and checking button clicks. I handled mouse input to make the buttons work, and I used Splashkit to create a GUI instead of just a text based program. So, yeah, that's my project. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. It actually solved a real problem. And the way I structured the code, it would be easy to add more features later, like letting users add their own recipes or save everything. Yeah.